Good day and welcome again to another conversation here on JewishSacredAging.com, and we'd like to welcome back David Zinner, the founder and executive director of the Gamliel Institute. In a previous conversation, David, we talked a little bit about the Kavod V'Nichum training in the Chevra Kadisha. I want to focus on this particular conversation on the Gamliel Institute, this sort of like the umbrella that you created and are working on. So real fast, what is the Gamliel Institute?
So the Gamliel Institute is a program of Kavod V'Nichum. It's the leadership training arm where we help identify people from around the U.S. and Canada who are interested in taking on leadership roles within their synagogue or community to further the Chevra Kadisha movement. And there are probably about 85 students right now who are somewhere within our program.
So this, again, we've talked a little bit about, and you alluded to this in one of the previous conversations here, this interest in, for the want of a better term, death education and awareness. I'm wondering, is this being driven a little bit, or not a little bit, but a lot by the baby boomers and who really want to seize more control of even our own death and how we orchestrate that?
I think it is. I think there is definitely that baby boomer influence, but there are also some other interesting influences that we notice that happen within the Chevra movement. I'll give you one example. We find a disproportionate number of converts that are part of the movement, and part of that is because maybe they come to Judaism seeking a certain spirituality, and this is a place where they can find it.
So you're seeing this. I mean, you use the term spirituality, and there's this rise or this rekindling, maybe that's the wrong word, of interest in things spiritual that people, as I sense it in my work too, as we go around the country, they want a sense of meaning. They want an understanding of why we're doing this and what does it mean, and what does it mean on a larger level, and also what does it mean for me. So are you seeing this as a result of this, and changes though in the way we're doing funerals and the way we're sitting Shiva? Are you seeing a change in this?
We are. We're seeing, first of all, a lot of folks are very interested in interacting with the process. They want to be involved, and they want to understand what's the tradition, but they also want to infuse it with the elements that will make it meaningful for them. So, for example, in a typical Shiva service that I see now, there's not just a davening and then right to the food, but there's davening and there's an element of remembrance where people have this opportunity, this space to talk about the person who died, whether they're a relative or a friend, or even grandchildren are having a chance to talk about their grandparent.
So this resurgence or this change, are you seeing more, and you kind of like alluded to this, involvement? So in funerals and the discussions that you've had at your conferences and trainings, then you're seeing, am I correct in understanding, more people, I want more control of what's happening here. I want more input. I just don't want to call up the rabbi and say, here's the funeral, you take care of everything, meet with the family. But we want more of a say, more of a control in this?
I think there's a control element, but there's also a strong involvement element. I want to be part of the process. I don't want to just be an observer. I want to be a participant. And, when people get involved in doing taharas, for example, the ritual washing, it's very hands-on. It's about as hands-on as you can get. Or for example, if they do shmirah, the ritual guarding, people do that almost as a meditative process where you may take a 2-hour shift, and it gives you this space where you're able to focus on the person, on their life, on what they accomplished, your feelings, unresolved issues that you may have, where you can process, and without all the distractions of cell phones and television and children, etc.
So walk us through real fast what the Institute does as far as these classes or trainings that you would do, and because I imagine you do the liturgy and what the why behind the ritual.
Right. So, for example, we have this book here called Chesed Shel Emet, version 3, written by Rabbi Stuart Kelman and Dan Fendel, which walks people through the liturgy of Tahara. Mm-hmm. And it not only talks about the liturgy itself, but it has kavanot before each of the prayers. It has an explanation of who's talking to whom. So, for example, when you first start, the Chaver Kadisha comes in and does a tahara, they ask for forgiveness, a mechila. They're talking to the maid or meitah. Even though the person's dead, we're talking to them, we're asking for forgiveness because in case we do something that shows disrespect, it was not our intention. Our intention was only to show respect. And there are other prayers where we're talking to God and where we're asking God for, we're advocating for the person's soul. So it's a whole series of prayers and that all fit together very nicely. And we teach the liturgy in the Gamliel Institute as one of the elements that we do. We also teach the history and the politics of the Chaver Kadisha and how it evolved in the funeral history, especially in the U.S. and Canada. We have a course that's just focusing on Tahara, where we not only talk about the liturgy, but we talk about working with your funeral home and what are the facilities that are necessary and what's the equipment that's necessary and how to organize a Tahara team and how to do training for that team and what kind of infection control measures do we take. We have another class that is solely focused on comfort, where we talk about all aspects of chaplaincy, Jewish chaplaincy work, such as how do you talk to people? How do you listen? How do you what is hospice all about? So that people become very well-rounded, so that they have a complete understanding of all of this piece of the continuum of end of life.
So I have to ask you this question. There's probably some colleagues sitting out there who may say, well, wait a minute, that's what I do. Why should I call these people and have them create programs for that's what I'm supposed to do. How do you deal with that? I'm sure you.
Well, first of all,
I'm going to assume, I may be wrong, that you've run into this question.
Of course. So first of all, this is for your colleagues.
Right.
Okay. We have rabbis and rabbinic students who take our courses, and often this is a part of their education that was not thoroughly covered in rabbinic school, or some folks just want to get refreshers. But also, most rabbis that I interact with find that they have too much to do. That they cannot do everything that they want to do. And so it's great for them to have a team that they work with of lay people within the congregation who can do some of these things. For example, Bikur Cholim visits. What rabbi is able to keep up with as many visits as they need to make? So it's not a competition. It's a coordination. It works together. And we encourage, the rabbis and lay people to work together on these kinds of issues.
So if I'm a rabbi of a congregation and I have a very nice caring community committee and they've analyzed the congregation, we've seen this growth and trend of a lot of increased numbers of death and funerals, then to sort of it would be interesting, I call you up, I email the Gamliel Institute and say, I'd like to bring you in to really develop this program, to train my people to work with me and tailor it to the culture of my community and my congregation. Would that be a fair assessment?
Absolutely. People need to be encouraged to do some pre-planning. Right. There need to be classes that synagogues offer to do education on some of these issues.
Absolutely essential.
And we know that when the rabbi is working with the family to write the eulogy and to interview them, at the same time other things need to be happening. The family needs to be coordinating with the cemetery and the funeral home, and the tahara and the shmira happening. So we know the rabbi doesn't have lots of surplus time right around then. So it really is a team effort and requires very close coordination. And in the synagogues where it works well, it's very smooth.
And if I wanted to get in touch with the Gamliel Institute, I do that by how?
Go to our website, jewish-funerals.org. We have a whole section there on Gamliel Institute. It shows all the classes that we're teaching, and all the classes we teach We record them so students who miss a class, they can get it. And we have 90 minutes of online conversation every week. And we also have extensive readings that people can then go back to and use as a resource manual.
So if I'm in a congregation and I may have 2 or 3 people who've indicated an interest in this, I can have them contact you, and they can do this on off-site online?
Absolutely. People take these classes from all over the country. It's all online, and we made it simple so that regardless of your level of technological expertise, whether you're an expert or a novice, you can participate. It's very easy to participate.
And I would imagine this is just as you're talking, this that came to me that there's a significant amount, or is there a significant amount of the psychospiritual work that's being done by the people who are taking these classes? Because you alluded to the fact that there's somebody sitting with a body, they ask for forgiveness in case they make a mistake. But also, I would imagine in the process of being trained, there's I would hope an approach or an ability for that people being trained to actually begin to work through their own issues with what they're doing, and if this raises all kinds of other concerns or issues or past experiences. Do you have experience with that?
Yeah, almost all of us have something that's unresolved regarding death. The death of a grandparent is the most common thing people say, is that they didn't get to go to the funeral of a grandparent.
Really?
And this comes up over and over, that they felt like there was no closure there. And actually, Rabbi Mel Glazer, who says this very interesting thing, he says, when you do a tahara, you're really imagining that there are 3 people there, not only the person who died, but also your parents, right? And also yourself. And so, that's pretty heavy.
No,
right?
It's pretty heavy.
And, there's a lot of stuff for people to work through. People come to this work for all different reasons. And by the time you're done going through this training, hopefully you've explored all that. Wow. And we're not professional therapists and counselors, but, there is a lot of healing, I think, that happens as people do this work. They become more comfortable. They resolve some of outstanding issues they might have, and this happens both at the Gamliel Institute and also with Kavod V'Nichum trainings, where people need to be given the opportunity to talk about these things, and then they have a lot to say. It's almost like, I don't want to talk about death until you bring up the topic. Once you bring up the topic, I have a lot to say.
The contact information again is what?
It's jewish-funerals.org, or our email address is info@jewish-funerals.org.
David Zinner, the Executive Director and Founder of the Gamliel Institute, and Kavod V'Nichum, thank you very much for appearing on these conversations with JewishSacredAging.com. Thank you for watching, and we wish you a good day. Take care. We'll see you next time.